Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very happy to be here with you today. And today we're going to talk about Lean BIM from project owner's perspective. And it might be a bit of an unusual talk because we're trying to get really practical with what is necessary in BIM and what a lot of people seem to miss when they think of the BIM environment, broadly speaking. So let's get right into it. So our topic today is project owners' perspectives, lessons from Lean BIM experiment, My name is Calayde Davey. I'm a director for Region 50 Urban Strategy, and I'm also the chairperson for Lean Built Environment Africa, which is an NGO dedicated to promoting lean design and construction practices continentally for our industry. With me today is Ewan de Klerk. He won't be speaking, but I'll do the presentation today. He's a construction manager for Pakisa Dynamic Engineering, and he is running multiple construction sites and jobs for the owner, Nicolaas Erasmus, who is the CEO or the group CEO of CGIS, the Group Ecosystem Services for City Property Development. They are in the business of student housing and own quite a number of assets across the system and the geography of Johannesburg. Before I move on, I would like to make special mention to Nicolaas Erasmus. There is not enough emphasis put in the world on the importance of owners taking on innovation and leadership in the industry in our construction design industry. So Nicolaas Erasmus is an example of such an owner. He is allowing us to experiment. He's allowing us to try things out. He's allowing us to learn. And I would like to put that forward into our industry as a mood or an environment that we'd like to see happen more often for ourselves. We're often so disconnected from what the owners really need and want. We could be working more effectively if we start collaborating together. All right, so with me today is also Ewan de Klerk. He is an up-and-coming lean champion in the making. And my role is to tell you today how we're thinking about Lean and BIM, how we're introducing it to new teams, inexperienced, low-skilled teams, and that BIM doesn't always have to mean technological instrument. In fact, it's a much broader thing. And if you understand that BIM is bigger than the instrument, there's much more opportunity, hopefully, for you to start getting engaged with it and getting active in this space. So come along with us and we'll see if you enjoy this today. So what are the key ideas? I'm going to start here, then I'm going to have a small conversation about all of them, and then I'll invite you to come and take this conversation further with me. But what I want you to take away from today is this, that the lessons is that if you are using BIM and you're fundamentally using BIM because you're looking for some kind of improvement, or you're hoping that it drives down costs, it seeks out efficiencies, or whatever else is coming to mind, it's improvement based. That's why we're doing BIM. But if you don't understand that improvement is fundamental as social technology, you're going to miss the plot here. Machines don't have directives to improve, humans do. And we can't drive that into a machine, doesn't matter how much we ask it to. Improvement comes through human relationships, human actions, and human behaviors. Nothing else drives improvement. This is incredibly important. Good processes that we develop, there isn't a formula for a good process. You develop it, it's emergent, and you develop it through exploration. But once you have good processes, those things drive good outcomes. It's not technology that drives good outcomes. 2, this is very important. Nothing about waste is unimportant. We often, it's very unusual to be in a design and construction industry, especially a conventional one, that is talking about waste at all. And if they do, they tend to think of waste as physical waste only, as in numbers of things in the way. But there's an abundance of invisible, wasteful things that we are unintentionally doing or allowing to happen to us. And part of being in a BIM environment is you're starting to uncover that in the design process, but by extension, we want to uncover it in the construction and execution of the work as well. And nothing about waste is unimportant when it comes to the design and construction. The thing that we need to get good at is getting people involved to find and seek it out and celebrate finding waste. This is, by the way, none of these are in a particular order, but in a hierarchy, but 3 is very important for me. Start something. Start something. Start anything. Start anywhere, and start especially with anyhow. I hope through today's simple case study, a simple example, you can see that you don't need high-end technology to be involved in lean and design construction and BIM design and construction processes, because these things are process-driven. And we're looking for ways for you to get engaged faster, especially from the owner's perspectives, lead your teams to get into starting a BIM journey. It doesn't matter if it starts analog and becomes technically automated later on, but start something, get on the bus. Number 4, share everything openly. There's a lot of hesitancy in design and construction to think that sharing is harming. This is absolutely against the ethos and behaviors of BIM, especially lean BIM practitioners. If once you start sharing and you're sharing openly, you can uncover all the things that could be falling away, and all the unintentional obstacles or things. You can start exposing things that you could start taking a work away. This is a very harsh way to say it because people don't understand it right, but you can start to take unnecessary work actions away. And when you start doing that, you are fundamentally saving on costs and creating profit. So sharing, but getting lots of eyes on the job, getting lots of perspectives across the industry or across the hierarchy of your organization on the job is useful. It is specifically useful to share in the open, and others can see you do it. Hopefully you'll see at the end of the day how that is true. Make the work of the job very visible, make it very understandable, make it obvious, make it interactable, and get people engaged to see what it is that is going on. All of this, all 4 of these things up here are fundamental, because if you do not establish some kind of culture around those 4 principles, social technologies that make its communication and coordination and handover and flow easier, if you don't have it, if you don't have good social technology, no other tech will save you. It cannot save you. In design and construction, it's all about humans and relationships and handing over communication to each other and taking away difficulty for each other. And if you don't have the social technological foundation, I'm not talking about Facebook and Instagram and sharing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the relationship, behavior, and actions that human beings need, exchange with each other. That social technology, if it's not geared towards improvement and it's not facilitated, it doesn't matter what instruments you use, you will fail. Learning is king. Celebrate it, get people excited about it, extract it from them. The second part of learning, though, is a lot of our industry thinks that learning comes first and then doing happens. We should change that mood. Learn while you practice. Do it in the moment. Start today. There's no way you'll be late if you start today. And the third thing is the lessons of the day, and then we'll get into the details, is beginners are the heroes. The most learning, the most innovation, the most curiosity, the most imagination, and successful outcomes come from those who try something for the first time and keep on trying on it until they become masters. Celebrate the beginners. Give people time to practice. Give them space to express and experiment. Try things out. This is very, very important if you want to be successful at it. It also saves a lot of risk and stress if you get good at that in your organization at large. So let's get into this project. But before we do, I want to make sure we're all talking about the same stuff. For a long time, I'm sure you've been in this conference for a while now, so you are probably beaten to death about what BIM is, Building Information Management. And want to make sure we understand that most of our common language, if you go into the market, common market, will understand BIM as a very good looking 3D building or model or object, but it is typically useless beyond the author. In other words, the BIM model for the architect is typically useless for the constructor, and the construction model is typically useless for the operator, if you even get that far. So in very many ways, if someone is speaking about BIM as very good looking 3D model, but it's not interchangeable and it's not process driven, they're really missing the point. So when I speak about BIM, I speak about it specifically like this: managing the information of building process. This is a very different idea from building information management. Even if those three words tell you that this is a very limited understanding of everything that's involved, but we're actually trying to manage the relevant information of making the building process flow. If your BIM environment doesn't do that, you're wasting time and money. So I want to make sure that I also want to make attribution to Richard Matchett, who introduced me to this nuance a couple of years ago, which I think is incredibly important for our industry to attribute. Richard is the digital practice leader to Taria South Africa, and he put my attention on this, because once we are only focused of creating information to manage, we typically overcreate the information that is necessary to manage, and we produce waste. This is knowledge waste. And BIM is littered with overly designed models that are not helping us build or design better buildings. If you switch your mind to managing the information of the building process, or someone else out there can have a fancier acronym, but if you focus your mind on this, a whole new world of opportunities start opening up for you. All right, so let's look at our project. So we specifically are working on a very small project for many reasons. We have a very young team. First of all, it's a team that is very new to all of these ideas, including Lean, including BIM. And the whole point of this is we also have a bunch of team members that are low tech, so to speak, and they might have cell phones, but they're technically on the lower end of the scale. And communicating to a technically a mature person versus technically naive person is very difficult if you do it in the wrong way. So there's no point in us communicating a database to a bricklayer when they are not versed in that language and they don't know what to look at. So I'll move on from here, but let's look at this. So we're working in a very technical world on the middle management side and the project PM side, and this is part of building. And we have a 5D model. This model is updated and updating as new information comes around. And when I mean 5D, I mean that this is a component-based estimation. So I have on the right-hand side, I have a roof structure. Its component is listed in this database, and it is got the latest and greatest and best estimates to it as is procured through contracting. And this is called 5D, five-dimensional BIM. It is component-based estimation. All right, so BIM is described in our discourse as a community as a fully collaborative process, and it typically implies that this collaboration is between design professionals, so architect, engineer, supplier, and detailer. They consider themselves to be fully collaborative, but BIM is the instrument of BIM is for the point building the building. So we have to start including the contracting side of the conversation much more earlier on, and we might have to change the way we think we have to include them when we actually want to have a fully collaborative process. Because a fully collaborative process means it comes with the expectation that we have associated human behaviors that will also be collaborating and follow suit. And if we exclude our contracting partners, we really miss the entire function of why we BIM at all. Second, in our discourse, we tend to hope that BIM makes us focus on the creation of transparency and value. But what we actually do as practitioners unintentionally is we create a lot of unnecessary information because we're making, quote, good fancy 3D models beyond the use of the author. And what we do is we actually bottleneck ourselves. We create redundancy in the models that actually have no value beyond the design. What we ought to be shifting towards is using BIM to make sure that we only produce relevant information up and downstream beyond our design or scheduling capabilities. We have to help everyone understand what is relevance, and we can only get to relevancy if we include the entire project team, from the owner right through to the operator and the bricklayer and the superintendent. The third thing is BIM is commonly hoped, or the aspiration is that we have open sharing of data and we'll be learning across the entire project team. But in reality, no one sets up behaviors to allow that to happen. So what we want to achieve is that from the inception to construction, occupation, beyond, we all learn for the building, with the building, through the building, and the instrument or the environment is a BIM environment. But we tend to forget to include all the players when we use and talk about BIM. So with today's example, why we're using Lean BIM is because we are introducing the behaviors of the processes on site, just like we would be doing it in a BIM setting. Why are we doing this? I'm not going to belabor the point, but I'm sure through your entire conference, you've heard a lot about the reasons why BIM. But fundamentally, it is once we started hyper-specializing, we struggle to see each other's point of view, and we cannot understand and communicate in a way that creates value for the person on each side of this wall. When this happens, we have much less understanding. So the intentions go missing, the communication breakdown, and the assumptions rise. And this, what happens there is we deliver our buildings with much less coordination, and this coordination is systemic in the whole project delivery team. The outcome of this miscoordination is that there's very low quality, and it usually is very low quality and satisfaction for the entire system, including the client, including the people actually doing the work. The only way to change this is we have to do this change visibly and in the open. What I mean is we have to physically start being okay with becoming beginners and making changes and making small improvements daily so that we can learn faster. Let's get into the lessons from our project. So improvement is a social technology. It is human driven. If you do not understand that innovation and improvement comes through human actions, you're going to miss the opportunities in front of you. And we have to design good processes that will drive good outcomes. We know good processes deliver good outcomes. We tend to forget that the process of building sustains right through from the owner right through to the occupant. And we don't often have good behaviors in our organizations take account for that. BIM is one of the first instruments that, quote unquote, forces us to collaborate across disciplines and collaborate across organizations. But we don't have the innate behaviors yet to know how to do that. So one of the things is we are often forgetting about the untapped potential of people to learn and people to be engaged, and the curiosity of human beings to be wanting to be involved with this kind of work. Once we learn that BIM is process-driven, not just technical instrument, if you actually care about delivering better buildings, you will start looking for others who are part of that sentiment. The untapped potential of our industry is one of the biggest wastes we have at the moment, and we could start changing it for a lot of people. Number 2, nothing about waste is unimportant. We saw that even on our own job site in this small little project, and there's a legion of examples across commercials and larger discourse. But the thing is, often we in our industry, we stop with waste as a physical thing as opposed to all the other things we might not be exposed to yet. And the only way to get innovation and eventually technological innovation through social technology is to get people really savvy and attentive to find waste. Every waste is important, and nothing about finding waste is not worthy to do. Getting people engaged to find it is really important. So here's our job site experiment. And as you can see, it's a very tiny little site. We are intentionally doing it on a small project because we are here to learn and we're here to teach. The team is very young to these kinds of innovations and practices, and they are a mixed degree of maturity and skills. So we are building we are looking for our own good processes so that we can build good outcomes, and we are training on the job while we're doing the work as we're doing it to see if we can build the teams and tap into that potential. So for that reason is why I'm also encouraging you to start something anywhere, anyhow, anything. It doesn't have to be large, complex projects with lots of overheads and budgets that will allow you to practice the process-driven stuff of BIM. Any project is valid, and I want you to, if I could sit next to you today, I would say, go and start something. Start anything. Try something out. Break the thing. Kick the tires, fall or scrape your knees, but start today. Don't get left behind by thinking the learning curve of technology that's going to get very process-driven phenomena. And the better you get at understanding the process of it, the less it's going to sound strange, but the less work you're going to have to put into it, and the less clutter you're going to have to do in your models. So let's look at it. So this is a typical example. This is last week, Thursday. We were, this is a daily or a daily and a weekly lean construction team huddle. Everyone in this room is a beginner. Every single person. They have a lot of construction experience, but in terms of lean and BIM and new things, everyone here is a beginner. So what we're trying to build up here is a social environment where we can actually do certain behaviors. And these behaviors, I want you to think of a data scientist. Before we go too deep in this, I'll show in a minute. When a data scientist or even a BIM technician or someone who works with data works, a lot of the work that they do is to declutter the data and to make sure that the flow of the data hands over into the next system process smoother. Defragging the computer is a very useful analogy here. And what we're doing every day in our daily huddles is we are trying to, quote, defrag our construction computer. So how we're doing that is we have huddles every day. And we're talking about the following things. This guy is not on his cell phone, by the way. He's actually writing down what was waste that happened to him in the job site today, or things that he saw untapped potential for that we could be improving, and he'll be throwing it on this wall. I'll show you this wall in a minute. Well, the wall over here is full of specific things that we as a team collectively, this is a team that is from the whole vertical hierarchy of the team. So it's all the way from bricklayers and tile and masonry and foremen to superintendents, PMs, and the owners are in the back as well. So the whole team is putting eyes on the job and making the waste and actions of the work super visible so that we can actually have a common conversation about that. The third most important thing is that we are practicing, and I'm using the active tense, we are practicing to ask open questions versus giving directives, because we are trying to learn what we cannot see. These two men cannot see how to build a building like they can. And if we don't know how to communicate through useful questions, it becomes really, really difficult to make a relevant action happen. So what's happening here is we're doing these things. We're learning and looking for waste processes. We are opening up the the actual work and making it accessible. We're doing it in an analog style because it's a very young and inexperienced team when it comes to BIM and Lean design construction, and we're practicing as we're working, not before, not after, in the moment of work. We're practicing how to ask open questions, and this is how we're setting up the managing the information of the building environment. So what does it look like? In this space, I won't spend too much time on this one, but we are studying specific defects, overproduction, waiting time, non-value adding time, transportation, inventory, and motion, and over-processing items. Now, these 10 is the shorthand for this is downtime, and it all comes from lean design and construction space. But we've also learned that very fast that we need to get to a common language. For example, some of our trade partners were Sutu, and they had a completely different interpretation of something like overproduction versus what I or my other colleagues or the Zulu colleagues had. So we had to start make sure that we are actually communicating collaboratively, that our social technology is working for us. What I'm saying here is this is analog, I know, but it's a technological move for us to communicate and coordinate better. The two most important things. So what we're doing here with downtime is we're using this to study waste, physical, visible, and invisible waste on the job site. And I'll show you why we do that later on. And then we're also trying to make sure that it is an environment where anyone can contribute an idea that would be useful for himself, herself, or the team member, or someone down the line. The two most important ones that we're trying to focus on is the sickness of making do with what you got. This is a sickness where you are in a situation, you just have to make it happen. Boer maak 'n plan if you're from South Africa. And the other massive one is the untapped potential of people and getting people engaged in what is actually what they are really capable of doing, not just limited to doing. So when we're done, this is a typical week or a typical session. It takes about 30 minutes. And we, as an open group, collect information about potential improvements that can happen very fast on the job site. This includes the smallest things like picking up hammers or printing the plan differently, or omitting information from the document because it's too difficult to read, all the way to complex problems like the procurement system is difficult, or the logistics system has collapsed or had a problem with it, or we have a missing person on the we have a staff turnover. So there's nothing here that is not up for grabs. Everything here is open for discussion, and everyone can then go up to the wall every day and work on one of these problems as they happen, because it actually matters to the job. These are problems that are literally occurring and is impeding the flow of work, and that's what we practice to focus on. The reason we do this is we want to start building a culture where we share openly, and this culture has to happen through human behavior. And we also want to make it very easy for people to understand that when you make work visible, just like BIM is making the complexity of design and construction visible through 3D-ifying, it's a visual interpretation of construction actions, right? That's what a BIM is. The same way we need to make behavior and expectations visible and problems visible, and it must be understandable as well. If it's only understood by the author, if it's only understood by one or two recipients, it's not useful in the BIM space at all, and it actually creates more obstacles and bottlenecks down the line. And the reason we do this is so that we can get more people engaged. So the next step for us is to, after we do a discussion on waste, and we use waste in a very optimistic way. It's exciting to find waste, because every waste we find means it's an improvement. It is a job improvement. It makes us more effective. It makes the job easier. But the next thing we also do, we are working with a different kind of planning approach, and it's called the plan or the last planner system. What this system is So typically in a construction, conventional construction, you have a master schedule, and this master schedule is authored by the job owner or the PM or whoever is the first planner, the person who is responsible for adhering the schedule to the contract. Right, so that is the first planner. But the problem with that plan is only the author understands the plan, and as soon as it hits the job site, it is outdated and irrelevant. So in another approach is to use the last planner. Now, the last planner is the person who is actually on site, who is engaged with the work as it is happening on the day. Now, pool planning, I won't go into a lot of depth here. Pool planning is an approach where we use the last planner, and here he is practicing with us on. It's for the job. It's the real plan for the job, but it's a practice session where we use the last planner to build up the schedule. And this schedule is a phased schedule, so it works through major milestones, for example. We work backwards from it. And this phase schedule is then discussed openly, broadly, every day, in detail, and gets matured quite quickly. And as you can see, this can be done digitally, but not everyone needs to do it digitally. Not every job needs it digitally. The process is what matters. It is the open sharing and the collaboration and the communication in the open that is important here. The outcome of this is we get a phase plan, and this phase plan is continuously updated, or every week it is updated by the team, by the last planners of the team. And this phase plan is the basis for our 4D BIM construction planning. And this thing will then be coupled to a schedule, and I will show you what that looks like. The problem is, just want to make sure everyone is clear. If you don't work on the social technology, no other tech will save you. If you don't have open communication in the physical, real way, human to human, you are going to struggle for the adoption you're looking for. Learning is important. Learning has to happen at every level at all times. And we have to be okay and accept and celebrate that we want to learn while we practice. The best place to, and I use practice here like a doctor would or a lawyer, it is their practice, it's their discipline, it's their discourse. The best place to learn is in the moment of working. If you put your attention on it, that's the best place to learn. And the third thing is we want beginners. Beginners are the best learners, and we should be celebrating people adopting new ideas because they learn the fastest, they see the best thing, and they're actually involved with what is going on. So if you go BIM, you don't necessarily have to be a technological, you don't have to be fully technologically mature or have very big jobs or very specific situations. You could start analog and be involved in BIM because BIM is process driven. It is defragging the computer, it's looking for communication, it's looking for ways to share across information agendas. That's what we're trying to achieve here. So the other interesting thing is once we started learning open, so here's our phase plan, very easy to access, it's very small. It's a small job, we're specifically learning on a small job so that we can train for the big works that is coming later this year. So once we put this in the open and we on the other side we had the waste pool, suddenly visitors come by because they have to do things, and this guy comes by and he happens to be the roofing contractor. And as soon as he started seeing how the job is working, it was easy for him to access the visual, what is going on. He started offering help. He started offering and engaging with him. There are all sorts of new constraints and restrictions and bottlenecks came out of the conversation because they could see the work and they were actively engaged with the process of coordinating the work together. And this was really, really interesting because a lot of his problems started falling away when they had this conversation, which they would never normally have in a traditional design and construction space. And they would never normally have in a BIM space only, but in a lean BIM environment, which is what I'm showing you here today, this becomes very possible very fast. So what do we do with all of this information? So I showed you in the beginning that this is our stuff. This is our 5D model with its updated component-based estimation and costing. So everything here is correlated to everything there. And as the design team makes a difference or change or an update, the continuous estimation happens on this end. And this happens in one digital environment. It's one place. This equals that. Then we phase plan with our construction team. This can be done many months in advance, or it can be done on the day. It's up to this project space. And this phase plan we base on the last planner system. And this thing is updated every week, and it can be manual, but it is real time because it's discussing the work as it is happening in reality. And we are going to be using this lean planning instrument to build our 4D schedules, because this thing is actually showing the realities, the executionable part of the work. So we are here now. We have a bunch of phase plans, and we are now going to move to 4D simulation world, where this analog space is also living in one world. The reason I'm showing you this simple project in retrospect, and I'm showing it to you step by step, is because a lot of people are overwhelmed that they think the learning curve for these high-end technologies is what is necessary to be practicing BIM and to be practicing lean BIM. And I want to show you that it isn't. It is process-driven, it is human innovation-driven, it is behavioral-driven. It's those social technologies that will actually create an effective lean BIM space. This is what we're practicing when we are gearing up for the big work. So BIM process, it is fundamentally a social technology because it's based in communication, and we need to get really good at that. It requires us to learn continuously all the time, and it's interesting when you do, but we have to open this up so that the construction process is involved with the technological BIM process at every level, at any level of sophistication, at any skill or language level as well. If we don't figure this social technology out, the adoption of BIM, lean BIM, is never going to take foothold in Africa. And as you might have seen now, it could be very effective, it's very simple, and it doesn't have to be complex environments that will allow this to happen. If you really want to manage the information of the building process, build it around a framework that includes human potential and human learning. So to summarize today, the number one thing is improvement is why we're using BIM at all. Improvement is a social technology, and we need to base our processes around that. Good processes will drive good outcomes. 2, nothing is about waste and is unimportant. We need to help each other, just like we do with BIM design, and we do clash detection and clean up models, and we defrag our computers. We have to get that ethic into the bigger construction space if we want our models to be useful and constructible and relevant. Get people involved to find waste everywhere. 3, start something. Don't think that your project is too small, your team is too small. You can start this analog, you can start the process-driven issues on your own when you leave this room. You don't need to think of the technological adoption as a barrier. Start with the social behaviors, start with the behavioral stuff, start with coordinating, start anything, anywhere, anyhow. There is no right way, there's only doing. 4, share openly. Share even when it's uncomfortable. There is no proprietary information anymore in design and construction. Everything is available. Everything should be shared. And when you do, you allow others to take away the clutter of the system, the clutter of the problem, and it just becomes much more useful environment to be in. Make the work as visible as you can. Like we're doing with BIM, we are taking abstract ideas of two-dimensional drawings and making it visible so we can actually see what's going on. So too should we make our behaviors and our processes visible, make it obvious, make it accessible, make it understandable. So that we can, if you have these two things, you get people engaged on the job. Now, all of this needs to happen if you want to be successful at this. If you want If your social technology fails, no other tech will save you. It cannot happen. It won't. Human beings cannot allow that to happen. If the social technology is not creating an environment for sharing, for open collaboration, for improvement, if that doesn't occur, the technology that you buy is going to be a waste of time and money. Learning is king. Learning should be celebrated. It should be encouraged. It should be promoted as far as we can. And we should learn while we practice. We don't have to wait before we go into practice. We can learn while we're on the job and in the moment. That is the best time to learn what is in our way. Beginners are the heroes. Please keep on inviting beginners to this conversation. Owners, you are a beginner too. And clients should, and professional teams, celebrate big owners who would like to try something out. This goes both ways. I think we have too few beginners in our industry, and we could be making so much more of a difference if we include beginners. So thank you so much for this conversation. I hope you found it interesting and useful, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.